For the past 2 years, Jocko Fuel has been the only supplement I've consumed. It's helped me stay in shape now that my competitive career is finished. If you've been waiting to try Jocko, the wait is over. Jocko has now teamed with Walmart, bringing clean fuel to the entire nation. Jocko Fuel is loaded with all the good stuff and none of the bad. And I'm talking no added sugars, no artificial sweeteners, and absolutely no gray area or banned substances. Just pure, clean fuel to power your performances. Jocko Fuel is now available in Walmart nationwide. Products available at your local Walmart are Jocko Malt, ready to drink, Jocko Malt powder, and Jocko pre-workout. How convenient. Guys, the time is now. Consider trying some of my favorites like Jocko Go and Jocko Hydrate. You can even do it online. Use code CHAEL30 at JockoFuel.com or just stop by your local Walmart and get your hands on some Jocko ASAP. Don't wait, might not last. Fuel up with Jocko Fuel and crush your goals. Now there's no excuse for not having clean fuel. Guys, I want you to go get Jocko Fuel today at Walmart. Tom Aspinall is so damn good at media and doesn't know it. I don't know that he enjoys it, but I think that's starting to change. Like, this guy's had massive opportunities. Fighting at Madison Square Garden, just for example. That's the media mecca of the world. And I think when he came out and he experienced it, I think he realized this is fun. This is a piece of it. Oh, and by the way, people like me. Like, not everybody likes to do media. A lot of times, just because they get harassed and bullied, and they get picked apart what they said, or they get picked apart if they stuttered, or they get picked apart if they had to scratch their face. Like, it's one of these things where you can't really go right. And then every now and then you get a guy that the people like. That's Tom. So I think maybe in that process, and I'm guessing, I think maybe in that process, he realized this is kind of fun. And he's fought in front of a number of sold-out arenas. Now, off the top of my head, he sold out 3 just in England. He went to be a special guest and do a cameo at one in France when Surreal Gone pulled the double cross. He comes out to Madison Square Garden. He does a co-main event, but for the heaviest weight class. I mean, I think he's starting to realize my left and my right and my grappling does a good job of making people interested in me. But surprisingly, me communicating with the people does just as good of a job. I get about half for the finishes, and I get about half for the interviews. And I'm just sharing this because he can't miss. I haven't seen anything this guy has said yet where I look and go, oh, Tom, what'd you do that for? No, it's quite the opposite. Even when I got to put a foot up Tom's ass, it's because he's not doing more. It's not because of something that he did wrong. Like, let me read this to you real fast, okay? Now you got to hear what the headline is. Where am I at? Oh, Harkness wrote this. All right. Well, Tom had help then. He got one of the great writers to cover him. Brian Harkness does an excellent job. All right, but here's the headline, and I think that you need to know that. Tom Aspinall shares strategy on how Stipe can beat Jon Jones. I love that. I love when they do that. Guys, I was sitting on one. I had Jon Jones gave me an analysis of Problemo versus Francis. But John and I we don't get along. So I can't go and use that. I got to get permission from John to use that. It's a code, but you have to do it this way. Even if you don't like the guy, you got to do it this certain way. I wanted to tell you guys about that so bad because it was so incredible to have a guy that can be objective. Not to mention who has studied both guys. Not to mention who, just to add to the validity and sincerity, he's likely to be facing one of these guys. Like, that's a very interesting guy to get an analysis from. Now, it turns out Tom didn't have, right? Harkness got us a little bit in the headline. But Tom does say something interesting. We're talking about when he's getting himself ready to fight. All I'm focusing on is getting myself physically as ready as possible. Well, I know exactly what he means. Getting myself ready, basically getting myself in fighting shape. I know exactly what he means. Every fighter, right? The coaches will come in and they'll start breaking down strategies. They'll start breaking down technique. All the fighter is thinking about is working as hard as I possibly can, because nothing will give you confidence aside from cardio. That's it. Your confidence is tied to your level of fitness. All right. So I just understood that. I just found that to be a very honest answer by Tom, and not many guys would do that. Most guys would play the game about, I'm going to step out to the left, I throw the right, and then when I come back, I ball this way, and I weave, and I come to the body before I come upstairs. Exactly like I did. Right, and they'll like rework a fight. Exactly what I'd set Curtis Blades up with, even though he didn't. Like, I mean, it's just one of these things that most guys would do. Tom just told you. He just told you straight up. I love that. He said, but I am a big tactics guy. In this fight, there isn't really, to be honest. Goes back to himself. When I'm focusing on me and my game plan, as opposed to the other guys that I could potentially fight. Are you understanding what he's saying there? This sounds so simple, right? This sounds so simple. This is a big deal. And it's not the first time Tom said something like this down. When I tell you guys that he's very interesting, he does a very good job. In fact, the part that he doesn't do a good job with is 3 years ago when he used to not go do the job. I haven't seen him do a spot where he gets it wrong. There was one that came out, and this was a minute. Well, no, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was right before Tom's fight with Curtis Blades. That's only a couple of months. And Tom was comparing himself and his training to that of a gypsy. Now, I gotta tell you, I'm not overly familiar with gypsies. In fact, I used to think it was slang, or even further, derogatory. I've only recently found out that it is not. That there's a pride in it. I didn't know that, so I just kind of stayed away from it. But I didn't know a lot about it. And as far as gypsy fighting, I did know about. I mean, that's where the Queensberry largely came from. That's largely where the Queensberry... You guys ever see those guys? I'll give you an interesting story. You ever see those guys, man, they're fighting, but they're doing that. They got their pinkies out. You ever see the guys that are fighting like this? And you're like, well, that guy doesn't know how to fight. He's just trying to look cool. Do you know those guys? Okay. Coach Clayton was explaining to me in a large part of bare knuckle fighting, particularly back at the turn of the century, if you made the other guy bleed, you won. Nothing else. Nothing else. I mean, you could knock the guy out, but if you make him bleed, they will stop the fight. And by the way, the guy that bled lost, meaning you won. And the reason they would do this with the pinkies, and Coach Clayton had to see this, by the way. He saw this in reform school because they follow those same rules when the guys would get together and fight. And all the other kids were like, fight, but then they had a code. And even the other kids would break it up instantly. If one guy bled a little bit, any blood, you lose. So what they would do is they would grow out that nail. They'd grow out that coke nail is what they would do. And that's why they fight like this, because they're just trying to cut the guy. They're out there fighting, boom, and if they can just scratch him, if they can just get blood. Interesting story, isn't it? So when Tom is talking about he's putting his hands in petroleum, I thought that was real, by the way. I had somebody have to tell, I think it might have been Darren Till that told me, hey, Chael, you're a fool. But he was saying that he was dipping his hands in petroleum. And then in his backyard, he doesn't have a fancy ring and a fancy cage like a lot of these guys do, a hyperbaric chamber. He's got hay bales around, and that's what he goes in. That's what he goes in just in the morning, just when he's all by himself. He's shadow boxing, right? Gets his pull-ups and get his push-ups. He's kind of getting himself going, getting his blood moving. And then when he's doing his own thing and he's visualizing, he's doing it gypsy style because he thought they were tougher guys. He thought they were the rougher and the meaner. They had the more grit. And that while Kempo and Taekwondo and now Jiu-Jitsu are the ones that are really being looked at, Tom was drawing strength from the gypsy training. And do whatever you want with that. That's interesting. You all just enjoyed that story. Well, I enjoyed it 2 months ago when I read Tom putting it out. So this is another very interesting one where he's talking about, the strategy I would give Stipe for going into Jon Jones, and then he kind of breaks down to where you don't have one. You got to just bring your skills, and if you spend too much time worried about what that guy is going to do, it's going to be a problem. You can really only focus on one guy. So you want to worry about what he's going to try to do to me, or do you want to focus on what you're going to go out and do to him? And I really do understand that. And if you're going to fight Jon Jones, you had better have that mindset. That is one of the more encouraging things I have ever heard from Tom as it relates to his approach and his ability to beat Jon Jones. Because I assure you, everybody else is coming out. Anytime you're reading an interview, someone's getting ready to fight Jon, and they start talking about, well, he's got that reach. I'm going to have to do certain things. And if you ever even read the word reach, if the other guy has at all thought about at all, if he even knows it's a thing, it's not good. It's not good. Because Jon Jones' reach and Jon Jones' ability for attacks due to his reach are all things that he's going to do to you. And now you're on the defense. And you can't win an ass-whooping contest except one way, and that's offense. It's good stuff by Tom. I encourage him to continue talk to the people. Whatever the answer is, just answer the question. The good stuff, the gems, the trash talk, the entertainment. It will come. It will come natural. You don't need to go and sit down with a couple of pre-rehearsed lines like you might at a press conference. It's not like that. Tom goes, he sits down with Harkness, he does a full interview. Just talk to him. Not everybody can do that. You got to be an interesting guy to do that. Turns out Tom, pretty interesting.